Aloha guys, this is Dr. Tom Walker coming at you once again. Now, we left off here. We're going to talk about positions and directions and planes of the body. We covered this in the previous video, but I want to go back over a couple things. Also too, guys, you're going to go over this in anatomy quite a bit. This is super important stuff. The sooner you can get it learned or memorized, the better off you're going to be. For example, somebody might come into the doctor with a skin rash on the anterior portion of their chest, and that's how anterior would be used. Or they might have a superficial laceration of their right finger or their right third finger. Now, proximal and distal, I mentioned that those are the most complicated. Let's take the arm, for example. The point of origin of our arm is at the shoulder, okay? Something that's close to the point of the origin is said to be proximal. Something that's further away from the point of the origin is said to be distal. So, for example, it would be correct to say that the elbow is proximal to the wrist because the elbow is closer to the shoulder, the point of origin, than the wrist is. Or we could also say that the wrist is distal to the elbow. Another way of saying the same thing. Why? Because the wrist is further away than elbow. Okay? This is normally used with things like the intestine or long limbs and structures like that. But it's all important. You must know it all. But you will, guys. Okay. Now, I was looking for a better picture than this, but it's the best I could come up with. So here's proximal and distal. The closer to the point of origin, it's proximal. The further away, it's distal. Medial is close to the midline. Lateral is away from the midline. Superficial and deep, we know that. Cranial or cephalic means towards the head. Caudal means towards the tail. Here's the posterior, or sometimes it's called the dorsal. Usually, though, guys, that's just used for like when describing the back and things like that. So this is the posterior portion of the body. This is the anterior portion of the body. Sometimes the word ventral is used. But what I've seen is dorsal and ventral are used under special circumstances. Okay? Here's also proximal, distal. In this case, the point of origin is the hip. What else? There was something else. Oh, okay. This is real important, guys. It's called the anatomical position. And this drawing of this lady is in the anatomical position, standing straight up with your palms facing forward. Why? Because we must have a point of reference. Just like north on most maps, back when they had like real maps, is facing upward. And you know, if you get if you center the map properly, north is going to be up. On the anatomical position, the palms face forward. Why? Because that makes this the medial part of the arm, and out here the lateral part of the arm. But if you didn't specify this, they could stand either way they wanted. They might have their palms facing backwards, in which case it would be the exact opposite. So you have to have it to specify. Okay? All right, we also have some imaginary planes in the body. These are used for diagnostic imaging like MRIs and things like that. Okay, so there are three. There's a sagittal plane, divides the body into right and left halves or portions. There's a horizontal plane that divides it into upper and lower portions. And there's a frontal, also known as a coronal plane, here's the word here, which divides it into a front and back half. Now, if you cut somebody open, would you find these planes inside their body? No. But these are used for reference points, primarily like for CAT scans and MRIs, things like that. Also, too, a sagittal plane can be right down the middle, like this one, in which case it's called a mid-sagittal plane, or it can be off several inches to either side. Still a sagittal plane, but it's not a mid-sagittal. All right, now combining forms for good old, back to good old med term. Abdominal is a combining form for the abdomen. Okay. A lot of these will sound like what they are, guys. Adipose is, again, adipose tissue is the word for fat. Anterior means front. Cervical means neck. Neck of the body, like this neck. But also it could be the cervix, which is the neck of the uterus. Chondro is the root word for cartilage. Cartilage are like spacers in the body. Chondro is the root word for cartilage, very important. Chromo means color. You don't really see that a whole lot. But coccygio is the coccyx bone, the tailbone. Cranio is the root word for skull. Cyto is the root word for cell. We mentioned that before. Disto, far distant, or distal. Remember proximal and distal. Dorso means back. Histio or histo means tissue. Remember microscopic tissue is microscopic anatomy. Ilio is the ilium, which is part of the pelvic bone. The pelvic bones are made of 3 separate bones that fuse into a big solid, very strong bone. Inguinal is the groin region, the inguinal region, the region around the groin. Karyonucleus, this is means the nucleus of a cell. That is only used under certain specific instances. Lateral means on the side. The lateral is the side. Medial, lateral is out to the side, or if you take a picture of a person from the side, that's a lateral view. Lumbo means lumbar area, the lower back. Medial means the middle. Median, medial. Nucleus, usually of a cell, but of course atoms have nuclei too, but we're not going to delve that deeply back. Pelvi means pelvis, the big hip, strong hip bones. Postero means back or behind. The posterior of the body is the back of the body. Proximal means nearest. It's just like proximal and distal. Sacro is the sacrum, the inverted triangular shaped bone upon which the spine rests and the hips articulate. Okay. Combining forms. Sarco means flesh. Yeah. Spino means spine or backbone. Very important. Thelo means nipple. That's not real commonly used, but okay. Thoraco is the chest cavity, or the thoracic spine, the spine in the mid-back that has the ribs attached to it. Trachea is the windpipe, or trachea. And the front of the neck here, guys, is the tube we breathe through, the trachea. Behind it is the tube we swallow through, which is called the esophagus. The umbilicus is the belly button. Now, I always laugh about this. There are some doctors who pronounce it the umbilicus, like potato and potato. I actually met some. It's just inferior to the umbilicus. Okay, yeah. Well, I just say if you really get me, man, I just say belly button. Ventral means the front or the belly. Vertebral means the vertebra, the backbones, the spine. Visceral means internal organ. Viscera are like guts. It's a general term for internal organs. Only it's a lot more appropriate than guts. Prefixes. Ana means up. Like anabolism builds up. Catabolism breaks it down. Epi means above. We touched on that in the last one. Hypo means below, like hypotension, low blood sugar. Inter means between, like the intercostal muscles or the muscles between the ribs. Intra means within, intracellular, within the cell. Meta means change. A metamorphosis is a change. All these are important words, but meta all of them are. I shouldn't single it meta out. Metamorphosis means change. Like a butterfly changing into a caterpillar changing into a butterfly. Superficial, EAL, are suffixes. OR, all these guys are pertaining to, and you have to see them used to gain a bit of an understanding of that. Ism, process, os, plasms, some, body. Okay. Oh, is that all? All right. I tried to get it done in one video, guys. I wasn't able to. Let us go back and take a moment. Okay. Atoms and molecules make up cells. Cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs. Organs make up systems. There's 4 kinds of tissues in the body. Nerve tissue, muscle tissue, connective tissues, and epithelium. Epithelium is like the cells that make up the skin, the cells that line our mouth, our throat, our the vaginal canal, the rectal canal, the urethra that you wee through. All that's very important. The tissues in the lungs where gas exchange, oxygen and carbon dioxide take place. That's all highly specialized epithelium. You'll see that more when you start studying the integumentary system. You'll go over epithelium into some detail. Okay, again, this will be covered in A and P. Here's the cell, basic structure of living things. Some things only contain a single cell, some organisms. Nucleus, cell membrane is quite complex. The mitochondria are what generate energy for the cell. The cytoplasm inside give it stability and act as a liquid medium. Endoplasmic reticulum moves stuff around. Protein synthesis occurs. Well, let me back up and say these little dots on here are called ribosomes. Here's the word ribosome. Rough ER has ribosomes on it. Smooth ER does not. Ribosomes are the site for protein synthesis, guys. Cells make proteins for their own use, but also to be, like say there are cells in a gland, they might produce protein hormones to be exported elsewhere in the body. The Golgi apparatus helps to package these things and get them ready to be shipped. We also had lysosomes that help break down waste products in the cell. The nucleolus is like a little nucleus within the big nucleus. Everything is coordinated through the nucleus. All the genetic material and all is in there, the DNA, the chromosomes, and so forth. Anabolism is to break down, or build up, Catabolism is to break down. We've gone over most of this. Here's 4 different kinds of cells. There are many different, more than just these, guys, but here's a stylized nerve cell, muscle cell. The muscle cells are actually these little tiny, and they're built up in bundles, and they're very strong. Fat cell, largely a storage material, structure to hold the liquid fat. Here's an example of columnar epithelium. There's several different kinds. Okay, we talked about tissues. We talked about organs. Different tissues come together to form organs. Organs, or the skin is the biggest organ in the body, but the liver, the lungs, the heart, the brain, and so on. The colon, everything. And all these organs come together. Like, for example, the digestive system has the teeth, the salivary glands, the esophagus we swallow through, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine. Then it has some accessory organs: the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder. Actually, the teeth and the salivary glands. There are 3 different types of saliva glands. All are part of the accessory organs. But you'll get into all that. Never hurts to hear it, though. You'll get into that in more detail in A and P. These cavities we talked about: cranial cavity holds the brain, thoracic cavity all the contents of the lungs, or the chest, abdominal cavity all the stuff that's in the stomach, intestines, stomach, and all. Pelvic cavity, the bladder. I think we skipped this last time, not on purpose. The rectum, which is the distal end of the large intestine, or the colon. The urethra, the tube that we expel urine through. The ureter is the tubes that bring the urine from the kidneys down to the urinary bladder. The uterus and vagina in the female. Spinal cord back. Here's a drawing of the cavities. Got about 15-20 more seconds here. Here's the major organs in the abdominal, pelvic, and thoracic cavities. Looks real complicated, guys, but when you start spinning out, there's not even 20 here. Less than that. Okay. These regions and quadrants. The quadrants are the easier to learn. You can sit there and learn that in one setting. These will take a little more, but you have to know them, guys. Okay, we're running out of time. Dr. Tom signing off. Read, study, do. We'll see you next time.